দর্শক আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি ভয়েস অফ আমেরিকা থেকে। আমি আহসানুল হক। 9/11 9/11 20তম বার্ষিকী আসছে অতি শিগগির, মাত্র কয়েকদিনের মধ্যেই। 9/11-এ যে হামলা, 9/11-তে যে হামলা ঘটেছিল যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের কয়েকটি জায়গায়, তার মধ্যে একটি হচ্ছে নিউ ইয়র্ক। সেখানে টুইন টাওয়ার ভেঙে পড়েছিল বিমানের আঘাতে। এটা দর্শকরা সবাই জানেন। আজকে এই বিষয়টি নিয়ে আমরা কথা বলছি ভয়েস অফ আমেরিকার পার্সিয়ান ডিভিশনের মাইকেল লিপিনের সাথে। মাইকেল লিপিন, ওয়েলকাম টু আওয়ার শো। হাউ আর ইউ ডুইং?
I'm great, Ahsan. It's great to speak with you.
Thank you. As we know that the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up very soon. You are doing a project on that special day. Can we hear from you what you're doing?
Yes, of course. So I've been working for quite a few months now on a project about the changing landscape of Ground Zero, which is the name that we give to the area of New York City in Lower Manhattan, where the 9/11 attacks happened and where there was a lot of destruction 20 years ago. So my project is about the buildings that were lost on that day. In fact, many people in America and around the world who are old enough to remember would recall the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center being struck by planes and collapsing on that day. But actually, not so many people, even in America, are fully aware that it was not just two massive towers that fell, but it was actually a total of 10 buildings were lost, destroyed, or had to be demolished over several years because of the 9/11 attacks. So I wanted to create a web report to show people visually what were these buildings, what were these other 8 buildings actually that were lost on the attacks, what did they look like, when were they built, what were the stories, the histories of those sites. But also this project is going to be looking past 9/11 at how the rebuilding effort proceeded in the following years. And actually, I did a sort of an earlier version of this project in 2011. On the 10th anniversary of 9/11, I went to Ground Zero myself with a colleague, and we took photographs of the various building sites in that area.
People who died on that day, several thousand people, of course they will be remembered, and people will always remember this day. Now that the US troop withdrawal from Afghanistan happened just a few days ago, and the 20th anniversary is coming up now, almost at the same time. When the 9/11 happened, of course, the public opinion changed. And what is the public opinion now after 20 years?
Well, you're right. Actually, we can look at how public opinion in the U.S. Has evolved, since the attacks of 20 years ago. Before I get to what Americans are thinking today, I think it's useful to look at what Americans were thinking right after 9/11. And there is a research organization called the Pew Research Center. They put out a report just a few days ago looking at what public opinion was like in the weeks and months after 9/11. And they've been taking surveys of opinion about 9/11 throughout the last 20 years. So it's a very comprehensive report. And some of the highlights I can share with you and your audience. One is that Americans right after 9/11 were badly shaken, and the shock that they felt right after the attacks brought the nation together in a sense of unity, albeit brief, but it was a strong sense of unity. And what was the basis of that unity? It was sadness about what happened, and also patriotism. And the Pew's survey shows that many Americans were so patriotic right after the nation was attacked that there was strong support for the US invasion of Afghanistan, for the start of that war that President Biden ended just days ago. There was very strong support at the time for George W. Bush, who was the US president, to go into Afghanistan, almost a month after the attacks and invade in the goal of ousting the Taliban, which had been sheltering al-Qaeda, which carried out the attacks. Now, that strong sense of patriotism also produced a strong support for the invasion of Iraq as well, which happened in 2003. But Pew did find, the Pew Research Center found that the public support for both of those wars declined and waned over time. Some other findings I want to share with you are that, there was a majority of Republicans and Democrats have consistently said that terrorism is a top concern for them and for the country throughout the last 2 decades. So I think that's one, let's say, consistent feature of surveys over 20 years. Terrorism is something that many Americans are concerned about and think that our political leaders should address. But a more recent change is that the share of Americans who think terrorism is the top priority or the most pressing concern, that has actually gone down. And there are other issues that have come up as bigger concerns for Americans in recent years, and those are the state of the US economy, the coronavirus pandemic, obviously since the beginning of the pandemic in early 2020, and also the issue of racism. So those are more serious concerns relative to terrorism for many Americans. And I'm also happy to share with you what I heard from the other survey. So there's a survey that was conducted by USA Today, which is a big newspaper, national newspaper in the country, combined with Suffolk University. Now that survey is of what Americans think now about 9/11. And that survey was conducted with more than 1,000 registered voters. It was done in late August. And the people who were surveyed said that in terms of what is the most dangerous challenge to the US today, most of those people said it was the coronavirus pandemic rather than 9/11. What I can also share is that many a majority of the respondents in this survey said that 9/11, even though it's not, let's say, the top concern they have in their minds, they still say that it permanently changed the way of life in America. As you yourself, I'm sure, know, many changes have happened in the US, especially in terms of security, how airports are secured, for example. 60% of the respondents in this USA Today Suffolk University poll said there has been a permanent change to the American lifestyle because of 9/11. Only 38% said no. So that's a very big margin, a very big majority of people saying, yes, there was a permanent change. And that number actually has gone up. Right after 9/11, let's say a year after, according to the survey, the margin of those who said permanent change versus not permanent change, that was just 9 percentage points. 54% said permanent change, 45% said no. That was in 2002. Now you have 60% saying permanent change, and only 38% saying no permanent change. And one last interesting anecdote about that survey: the people who were the youngest on 9/11, or who were not even born on 9/11, more of them feel this permanent change to the way of life in America than those who are older. Actually, the survey says that 72% of respondents under the age of 35 say permanent change to our lifestyle. When you look at respondents who are 65 years old or older than that, you have only 52% saying permanent change to our life. So perhaps those who have lived many years longer, they can think of other times in their lives or in history when there were other factors that maybe led to bigger changes in their lives, maybe because they have a broader perspective. They don't see the impact of 9/11 quite so strongly as the younger people do.
Very interesting findings. And I'm sure generations to come will continue to feel the impact of 9/11, how it changed lives, how it changed everything, not only in America, also on a global level. It has changed so many things. But anyway, thank you very much, Michael Lipin, for your time today.
Thank you so much, Ahsan.
দর্শক, আপনাদেরকে ফিরিয়ে নিয়ে যাচ্ছি এখন ঢাকায় RTV স্টুডিওতে। আমি আহসানুল হক আপনাদের কাছ থেকে বিদায় চাইছি।